Now, I did not expect Sanji defeating Queen in this chapter, because initially I was of the mindset that this battle was going to continue for a couple of more chapters. We got more things here and there, but that wasn't the case. The final attack that Sanji did in the last chapter was a lot powerful than I thought, and this is because we didn't see the outcome of the impact. We just saw the initial hit in the previous chapter, and so I wasn't sure, because Sanji did do something similar earlier in this fight, and so I thought he was going to do it again. And I did feel like the scuffle between the two may last a little bit longer, even though we got a fair bit of chapters of them fighting. But it seems like this attack actually took out Queen for the count completely, because there is no coming back from this. Why do I say this? Well, this is because the attack literally sent Queen outside of the island, and not only that, we see that Queen has returned into his base form, which essentially confirms that he's knocked out for good. This is easily Sanji's most powerful attack yet, because the destructive force behind it was just on another level. Sanji's attack power is definitely nothing to sneeze at right now. But as usual, I would appreciate it if you drop the like on this video and hit the bell if you want to get notified for more content on this channel. I will say that I am really impressed with Sanji in this fight, because for the most part it seems like he was the more dominant one in this fight. I didn't really see Queen take over that much, only on a psychological level where he was using his family's abilities and whatnot. That's the only thing Queen had over Sanji in this fight, honestly. But overall, I would have liked it to be a bit longer, but I am fine with this resolution, because it seems like Oda is looking to progress Luffy versus Kaido, because there's a lot of things that he needs to unravel with that fight. Not only just because it is the most important fight in this arc, but also because we do have to see a bit of Kaido's backstory before his defeat, because in this chapter we do get some interesting things about Kaido and King that was pretty cool. But as of right now, Sanji and Zoro are essentially commander level characters. You could even put them at top commander level. So right now the only people that could take Sanji and Zoro on are essentially top Yonko commanders, admirals, and then Yonkos, because it seems like the monster trio have now surpassed the level of commanders. So I will say that I am really looking forward to the next opponents that Sanji and Zoro will be fighting. It's definitely looking like the admirals are next in line. But moving forward, after Sanji's crazy attack, we come to see the aftermath, in which Sanji returns the mouse to the girl, and the mouse turns out to be sort of a callback to his childhood, because back then he was feeding this mice back then, and I guess that was one of the moments that he remembers enjoying. So it's almost like this is putting an end to the past that always haunted him. This was done in a very Oda typical fashion. But overall, Sanji versus Queen was pretty cool. Now moving on to King versus Zoro. Now, as we expected, Zoro has started to turn the tides of the battle. It would seem that Zoro is now capable of hurting King, and this is because he's pretty much figured out the secrets behind King's body, or how his abilities work, also because of his use of Conqueror's coding as well. And here Zoro pretty much explains that King becomes faster when the flames on his back are out, but on the other side his defenses become weaker. So essentially King is sacrificing speed for defense and vice versa. Now, I'm not sure how that correlates into his race. Maybe there's more to it that hasn't been explained, because we didn't really get the full reasoning as to why that is. It's just kind of a weird explanation. Now, we know that the Lunarians were considered gods at a certain point in time, but there's still some information that is left out here, because Oda may still have more in store for this guy, given that his race has ties to world government and the Celestial Dragon. But I do feel like we're missing some context into what the Lunarians are in, and even King didn't even explain himself in this chapter, right? And so Zoro has been using this loophole to his advantage, in which he was able to cut King and reveal his face. Now, I've got to say that this is probably one of the cleanest designs we've seen so far, and honestly it just comes with the prestige of First Commanders, because all First Commanders have dope designs. But I do really like King's design, because it's not the norm that we see, right? It's actually very different from the usual that Oda puts out there, and a lot of people did speculate, you know, King does turn out to be dark skinned, and apparently this is a quality of his race. It was also mentioned by the fodder beast pirates that the world government is offering people 100 million berries for any information on these guys. The main key qualities being black wings, white hair, and brown skin. So again, it seems like these guys obviously have affiliations with the world government, and perhaps they were key during the Void Century, and the world government is essentially trying to eradicate any forms of evidence that transpired during that time period, and maybe the Lunarians were a part of that. So the Lunarians are actually more important than we think. And we also got to see a flashback with him and Kaido here, and it would seem that they both encountered each other in a world government experiment lab. From what it seems like, Kaido seemed to have escaped and had the idea of creating his own crew, and with that, King willingly joined him, asking if he was capable of changing the world, in which Kaido responds by saying that he is the only person that can. We also come to find out that King's name is called Arbor, and that the name King was actually given to him by Kaido because he was so powerful. And this is where King essentially becomes Kaido's right-hand man. This honestly sort of reminded me of Luffy meeting Zoro. It was kind of like in a very similar situation where Zoro was cut by the Marines and Luffy sort of busted him out and recruited him there. So again, very interesting flashback that we did get here. Definitely serves as a foundation as to why King follows Kaido, right? And definitely does make him a very interesting character, because I would imagine that his people have been chased, captured, and experimented upon. And given that he's been a witness of that, perhaps he desires some sort of revenge upon the world government, which is why he believes in his captain so much, right? Now, as far as the battle goes, Zoro versus King, this was a back and forth, which was completely different from how it was previously, in which Zoro was on the defensive for the most part. This really felt like a true battle. Now, even though Zoro could injure King now, things were still difficult for Zoro because Enma was still taking haki from him, in which Zoro says that if he extends this battle for too long, then Enma would eventually kill him, and so he had to end it quickly. Though this was also the case for King, because he also mentioned that he was reaching the limits of his capabilities. So here we start to see King use more devastating attacks, going more on the offensive, specifically with the use of his flame abilities, in which he's able to create magma-like fire. And interestingly enough, this fire was also shaped in the form of a dragon. Of course, the symbolism here is very apparent, the tiger and the dragon. I do also want to mention here that Zoro has become very proficient in using Conqueror's coding now, because he's able to do it at will. So not only is he able to imbue attacks with Conqueror's coding, he's also able to create the expulsion force that we see Luffy and Kaido use, right? Where they can attack without actually physically touching. Zoro was able to use that here to avoid having his swords taken away from him. It also came to a point where King started to block Zoro's attacks because his durability could no longer tank Zoro's attacks. So the glow up here for Zoro is amazing, because Conqueror's coding is going to be a massive boost in power for him, because here we're starting to see that he's incorporating it into his arsenal. Now, towards the end of the chapter, we get the final attack on both sides. We have King use his ultimate fire dragon, and then we have Zoro use his 3-sword style. So we knew that this was going to be the finisher. And here, Zoro absolutely destroys King's attack and King himself. It was really cool because you could see the trail of Zoro's Conqueror's haki leading all the way to King. The attack lands and King loses part of his wings and his sword breaks. This was a very epic finisher. It does definitely remind me of Odin's attack on Kaido, right? It's very similar in terms of the looks. Now, in regards to if King is done, I would like to say yes, because of how things are moving with Sanji defeating Queen in this chapter. And this is something Oda does a lot, because he tends to finish Sanji and Zoro's fight very close to each other, so that might be the case here as well. I've got to say that this is easily one of Zoro's best fights in the series. I honestly cannot wait for this to be animated, because this is amazing. Now, in regards to King, he was very dominant in the beginning of this fight, towards the middle section, but it only took one chapter for things to turn around, and that is the case for a lot of Zoro fights. Think about Mr. One, right? But overall, this was a really good chapter. It would seem that Sanji and Zoro have finally conquered their opponents and reached the classifications of commander level characters, and it seems like the main match against the Yonko is coming up, Luffy versus Kaido, so we'll see how that turns out. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Comment down below what you guys think. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, hit the bell and subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace. It is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later.